The packaging is pretty much exactly the same. We've got that classic MacBook Air side profile just showing how thin it is. And this is completely sealed, so we'll go ahead and get rid of the plastic. Give it a bit of a shake. There we go. So I have the space gray version here, but it is also available in a silver as well as a gold. And inside the box, as well as the MacBook Air, you do get a USB Type-C to USB Type-C cable, some paperwork with some Apple stickers, as well as a charger. So a charger is included in the box, don't worry. And here it is. This is so light, 1.29 kgs. Of course, that's why it's called the MacBook Air. Now, physically, this is exactly the same as the MacBook Air that was released earlier in the year. So it is made with 100% recycled aluminium. We also have the 13.3-inch Retina display and around a 227 ppi pixel density. It's actually a really good and sharp display. We've got the new Magic keyboard with the scissor mechanism, so we've got around a 1mm of travel. And we also have the same large trackpad. What is different? Well, what's different is on the inside. This is of course powered by Apple's brand new M1 chip. And this is actually a big change. Why is that? Well, if you think about the iPhones, you may already know that they are powered by Apple's own chips. So we've got things like the A12, A13, A14. And what makes iPhones special is that because Apple creates both of these things, you don't need to have crazy specs to get great performance because everything is very well optimized. Now, bringing their new chips to the MacBook line means a few things. Firstly, you get much better performance. Apple have claimed up to 3.5 times faster CPU speeds and up to 5 times faster GPU speeds, but also much better power efficiencies. Now, of course, I've only had this for a brief time so far, but from everything that we're seeing right now, the claims do seem to be living up. We've got much better battery life on the MacBook Air, as well as much better performance compared to previous generations. Now, when it comes to performance of apps that have been optimized for the M1 will be working best, such as Final Cut Pro, for example. You will be getting absolutely great performance here on the MacBook Air. But one thing that I was a little bit concerned about were apps that have not been optimized because they are kind of being ported over. And as far as I've seen, most of them actually work as expected and actually better than they used to. I'm somebody who uses Adobe Photoshop a lot, and in my brief testing, it has worked absolutely fine. Now, of course, there might be a few bugs and things that do pop up, which is the reason why a lot of people kind of say that if you are thinking about getting a new MacBook Air and you do rely on particular apps which haven't been fully optimized yet on the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro, then it might be worth waiting a little bit. But generally speaking, everything that we have seen has worked really well. Now, another thing that comes with the M1 is the ability to run iOS apps directly on your MacBook. I've briefly tested this out. There are not many apps available, not the ones that I use anyway. I was hoping to have, say, for example, Instagram on here, which I could then upload to directly. Instead of taking photos in my camera, editing them on my MacBook, and then having to airdrop them back onto my iPhone to be able to upload them. This is currently not here. I'm not sure if it's going to be coming at a later point. Now, apart from that, this is essentially the same otherwise. So we've got a 3.5mm headphone jack on the right. On the left-hand side, we have two USB Type-C Thunderbolt 3 ports. We do have Touch ID here at the top built in with stereo speakers. But one thing that I am definitely disappointed about is the 720p FaceTime camera. Now, this has been improved compared to the previous generation MacBook Air. So we do have a new image signal processor, which comes with the M1. So essentially what that means is that the feed coming in from the camera is going to be handled better by the chip, and it's going to give you better quality webcam footage. However, it is still not great. I wish that Apple did go with 1080p like they've gone with on the new iMacs. Right, now what about pricing and configurations? Well, The base model does come with 8 gigabytes of unified RAM, 256 gigabytes of SSD storage, and this starts at the same price as the previous generation MacBook Air started at, so around £1,000. You can get it cheaper if you go through education. And if you do want the absolute top spec with 16 gigabytes of RAM and 2 terabytes of storage, that is for around £2,050. Right, so who is the new MacBook Air for? Well, it's actually become a lot more easy to recommend this now thanks to the M1 chip. But at this point, the MacBook Air with the M1 chip and its performance is actually going to be fine for most people, even if you are doing some more intensive tasks. Now, of course, this is not going to be as good as the 13-inch MacBook Pro, because that does have fans. The MacBook Air is a fanless design, and although this makes it very, very silent, it just means it's not going to be able to keep those high levels of performance for the longer periods of time that the 13-inch MacBook Pro will be able to, thanks to those fans and keeping things cooler. But generally speaking, if you are thinking of getting a new MacBook Air, maybe you want one for school, university, then I can easily recommend this new MacBook Air, and I think this is going to be very, very popular.